This is the Shopware Hub Cast, where your host Sander Mangel and Dennis Höting, resident community hub expert and director of product development at Shopware, uncover the stories of the people that make our community. This episode, they talk to Sushma Nagabushana Gupta, tech writer at Shopware.
Sue, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to have you here for meditation and documentation. The moment I saw that on the wall at the Shopware Unconference, I was like, yes, show title. Has to be. Loved it. I really enjoyed your talk on the Unconf. Was great. So I think this recording is timely because I still have some questions from that from the talk that you did. But let's dive right into it. Maybe to kick things off, can you give us a quick overview of what your role is at Shopware? What do you do and how you got into learning content creation in the first place?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sander, for having me here. And I'm really happy to know that you love the talk. It just came out of like a boom from my head. And it is nice to know that, people loved it. And it was kind of out of experience right from my head. And it was a fresh experience from my head, wherein I recently had attended meditation. Yeah, so nice to know about it. And straight to your question, what am I doing at Shopware? I'm a tech writer at Shopware, mostly like building and managing our developer docs, which most of them use. And also, most recently, I have been contributing as a content creator for enhancing, structuring, and beautifying our learning paths in the Community Hub, which is at your service right now to build your knowledge. Yeah, I think this is a quick view of what I am currently doing.
Beautifying docs and learning paths. I like that. And I do apologize for all the stuff that I threw over the fence to you because I know my writing style is sometimes a bit rough, but
no,
yeah,
you are good.
You definitely have your work cut out. I love that. So let's talk maybe a little bit about how learning content at Shopware is structured, because I think a lot of people would know our dev docs, right? Which is our documentation. Some people might know we actually have merchant documentation. They might have seen some of the YouTube videos. One might even come to the conclusion that we're all over the place, at least on the internet. So what is our structure? You've mentioned that Shopware courses, isn't just documentation in your talk as well at the conference. It's really built to teach. How does that reflect in the way you structure that content?
Yeah, absolutely. So the technical docs are more like straightforward information on how things work. And whereas the learning content that we have right now, they are more like teaching, more like hand-holding and guiding you on all the aspects. So we have, as mentioned, we have a lot of documentation, but how it is going to reach out to the audience in a more accessible way, more understandable way, despite you being in different zones of knowledge. Like you could be a beginner, you could be an expert of 5 years working with Shopware tool, and you could be a merchant, you could be a developer. So be it whatever, the learning paths are more focused towards you. So we have different set of courses, which could be role-based courses, which could be subject-based courses like completely for a developer or completely on a product, say on a PaaS component and things like that. And mostly coming to the learning structure, which differentiates itself from the technical content, is about how we have broken down the learning content into smaller chunks and how do we formulate it to make it more understandable for the users. So we have most basically structured our learning content into something called as learning paths, which encapsulates itself inside with the courses and then the units. The units are the digestible components. It mostly has all the content and interactive modules and the visual content and stuff. So that's where you grasp all the knowledge from. And we're going to break down all of these courses into smaller digestible units, which, as I told, it's called as units as by itself. So units are like the atomic part and parcel of the learning path where you can access all the information. And it's going to be more easier because we have broken down into modular format, and it's not going to consume more time as we are not going to have the learning content more like a half an hour read or 1 hour video and things like that. It's going to be more simpler. It could be like maximum turning out to be 25 minutes. But currently in the courses that are present right now, like the basic developer courses or introduction to Shopware courses, it can last to like 5 to 8 minutes, and it's easier to digest. And yeah, more interestingly, since it is smaller chunks, it is easier to consume, and you're not left out, drained out, consuming information like beating around the bush or given very abstract info. So you are given sufficient information to just know what you have to carry out from that particular unit. So the learning objectives are well defined and your takeaways are guaranteed. So that's how it has been structured. I can let you know more about it if you have to know about what do we have inside the units and things like that.
Yeah, I think I want to zoom in on one thing that you said is that depending on your skill level and maybe your role, content would be different, right? Or content is tailor-made kind of for that. Can you maybe give a concrete example? What does that look like? So depending on whether I'm a merchant or maybe a project manager or a developer, you would maybe present the same content in a different way?
As I told you, we have role-based learning courses, mostly tailored for, say, this is something that should be consumed by architect, or this is something that should be consumed by merchants, because it's more specifically designed according to their level of consumption. We have differentiated courses in that way. So probably like a developer-focused courses, they'll have mostly code snippets as examples and more technical deep dives and more hands-on specific. And whereas the merchant-based courses, they could be more elaborate on telling what this feature offers to you, how is it beneficial to you, and how you could use it. And more like video-based courses and on a lighter side, using not very intrinsic technical definitions or languages, making it more simpler to understand. So that's how we have made it easy for different roles to consume the learning content.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And can you tell me a little bit about how you use scenario-based learning in the content? I know that is one thing that you apply to make it more engaging. I'd love to maybe hear like a practical example on that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Like the scenario-based I think this is the one that I really love to, because this is going to be something that can basically make difference with the rest of the documentations that we could refer to or any other learning modules that someone could draw information from, like probably a blog post or any other short videos. The scenario-based is something that gets more closer to the person because they're going to apply the scenario in their head and see how we're going to progress it and solve the problem. And most interestingly, I love to create these fictional scenarios. The one that we have, the one that I recently created was guitar store, a music store for the customers, and how we have tried to explain some Shopware-related concept like in the Rise plan, Beyond, and Evolve plan, the different features, how are the consumers getting benefited from that, and things like that. So, for instance, say there's a guitar institute and they would want to train 100 new folks every week on an average. And because the trainings happen extensively, then probably there could be wear and tear of the guitar strings. So they want to periodically order the guitar strings. And that's when the concept of subscription come into picture. So we bring in a scenario like this and then showcase what feature can resolve this issue and how is it going to be benefited for the customers. And then see how you can configure the subscription option. And that's how it takes to the solution.
Yeah, I love how you make it so practical, right? It speaks so much more volumes if it's a real world example. Even if I never build a guitar store, right? I would still kind of understand, okay, I can apply this in this certain way to my, I don't know, zip tie merchant or whatever case I might be working with. Yeah, that makes it a lot more applicable, I think.
Yeah, and additionally to that, we have provided, hands-on instance, like it's a mock instance where you can build your own guitar store in the way that we have instructed you in the learning course. So you can apply everything that we are showcasing in the course with the scenario. So it's like you're virtually building your own store and then finding a solution for by yourself. So, and there are also tryouts where you can also try out new scenarios. The scenarios are again listed, and with certain conditions, you try it by yourself and find your own solutions. So,
And I'm sure Dennis had nothing to do with the concept of the guitar store.
he had. I think he's my inspiration. You could see
Yeah, mate. But let me lose one or two words on those interactive learning environments. I think that's something to really elaborate on, because I think that's a big, big value in our learning experience that we are pushing forward here. So right in the content, right where you are reading, you have a module, and within 8 to 12 seconds, you have your own instance to really work with Shopware. So it's not really just about reading and learning. It's about reading, then applying that knowledge in little small steps. And then right where you, at the end of the instructions, there's a little button to test whether what you did in your instance, whether you did that right. So we have a connection between the learning content, like a technical connection between the learning content and your own individual instance of Shopware where you are applying your knowledge. And I think that's like a really powerful concept. And still, we even have the possibility, if you decide to just, move into some specific part of the learning experience. For example, you want to learn something about variance now, you step right into the right step of the learning experience and can, hydrate your environment into the right state so that you can apply your knowledge here. And I think that's a really powerful tool here.
Yeah, I think that interactive loop, right, that makes it stick, right? Because otherwise you just read docs, you're like, okay, whatever. it's already gone before you start to apply it. I really like that you managed to work that in. Maybe on some of the techniques that you are using. So one that really stuck with me is cognitive load theory. Would you mind sharing some of that?
Yeah, sure. I think the entire learning path revolves around this cognitive load theory, and it's one of the fundamental or a foundation. That's how the structuring is done. So cognitive load theory basically tells about how much can your brain process the information in a given period of time and with the amount of content that is present, So you can't throw a lot of information and give a short period of time, or considering that people are working and they have very less amount of time, and how much can one contribute to gain the same amount of knowledge with the amount of content. So you could have 2 pages of content and provide the same amount of information. Also, you could have a paragraph of content and provide the same set of information to them. So the idea is how much concisely can you transport the information to the user and giving sufficient knowledge about it. So we're not going to beat around the bush explaining things. It's not like a classroom session kind where where we speak everything and anything. But here it's going to be to the point, unlike the technical docs, but we're going to guide in a very structured way of what is necessary to be given for the learners. Understanding the learners, knowledge or the kind of background they're coming from. So that is why we have also distinguished the course on the level of understanding, like the basic, the mediocre courses, the advanced courses, courses with certifications and things like that. So mostly the cognitive load theory also talks about how to manage complex topics. So there's something called as intrinsic load. So intrinsic load information is something that you ought to push how do you handle complex information? For example, APIs are complex. Plugin development is complex. And they are complex and you cannot put them in layman terms. It has to be told in or delivered in a verbose way. But to what extent can you make it more explicit? Yeah, we should not make the complexity of the content also complex for the users to consume, but make it simplified, but not so simplified that they were not able to reach the solution when it came to their scenarios, their real life scenarios. So some complex concepts are to be faced in a complex way. So that is about intrinsic load concepts. And there are extraneous concepts as well, wherein we look at how to structure the complex content, how to minimize the content, how to not use unnecessary acronyms, and things like that. And it also speaks about replacing the textual content. So there's something called as the domain load as well, which talks about how do I replace this set of content with just a screenshot, which is well understood by just a look. Or how do I replace this with a flowchart? Or how do I replace this with a small GIF? So that's more informatory, and it is not taking more time because your eyes perceive something in terms of images quicker than the textual content. So it's basically to understand how users, or basically the learners, perceive things. And there are different dimensional way of thinking this as well. So we could also relate somehow to the accessibility perspectives, because many people consume things very quickly by looking at things. Some people consume very quickly by hearing to things. So it's all different way of perception of information, and how better can we take care of all of this? But I'm sure that our learning courses have done justice in all the ways, because we have interactive information, like we have the multimedia, we have the videos which can replace the text. So what's in the text can also be viewed as a video if you are someone or if you're a fan of visual things, or if you are a fan of reading things and get to know by yourself, then we have the textual content. And if you just want to skim through and you don't have much time, then we have the screenshots, we have the GIFs and things like this. So we have tried to cover different aspects of users' consumption levels through different modes. And most specifically, how to manage the complex content is one that is taken care here.
Yeah, I think this one really resonated with me, because in the past, when I used to learn stuff through the dev docs, what I noticed is you're rabbit holing, right? Because you're reading about something, and then let's say they bring up the doll, and you're clicking into the doll, and then you're consuming like 5 pages on the doll, and then you're like, wait, what was I doing again? Like, you're completely... I mean, I probably have a very low cognitive load. I know that, but it's very hard to keep track of what you're actually trying to accomplish if you need to keep clicking through to stuff. So I do appreciate that. Dennis, maybe a question for you I can imagine that having the dev docs and then looking at the community hub, the diversity in types of interactions and learning, was that one of the basic principles behind setting up the community hub?
Yeah, well, 100%. I think so from the get-go, it was important for us that we build a base that enables us to really ensure maintenance of the content. And that's why we decided to really go for text as the base, because it's easier to maintain. Since then, we are thinking about, okay, how can we then push that forward to higher quality digestion levels? As Sue just described already very nicely, we have videos describing the same like the text. And we will do that mainly, of course, for things that do not change again and again. However, we move fast at Shopware, and we want to be sure that our content is always up to date. So that's why, especially for the very technical things, it makes sense to have that in text. And we are also utilizing some UI here, some AI here as well, because there is a lot of content that will be where we auto-generate AI-based audio files. So if you prefer to listen rather than to read, you can do so. It comes in quite handy also when you're maybe on the way. But those different levels of digestion, because we are having different types of learners in our hub, it's really, really important. But text is always the base because it has to be maintained. It should be up to date all the time.
Yeah, I love that. For me, definitely, it depends on the topic, but listening is definitely the best thing. Unless it gets really complex, then I need to read. But in general, listening to me is perfect. And I love that we offer that for all the content.
Yeah. I think just as a quick note, so for me personally, for example, I like listening as well. However, I still enjoy listening to stuff. And then if I want to like recap over something, just getting into the content and scrolling through the content real quick. That's a big opportunity here as well. So this combination, I think, is really, really powerful. If you can listen, but then if you maybe recap on a few things or want to reread something, you can do so really fast, and you can navigate through the text like with a blink of an eye.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Sue, quick question on microlearning strategies, something you brought up in your conference talk as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So this microlearning is again related to the cognitive load theory. It is to give smaller chunks of information instantly. So now you know that the trend is to just watch reels on Instagram and things like that. So you can quickly, grasp info, and you can't hold on to the information for a longer time. And in a busy schedule like this, when people are working for long hours, the concentration levels would not be so great. So people would want to consume information at the knock of their fingers. So mostly the microlearning is something more useful when people want to get onboarded. So they want to quickly get onboarded, right? So they don't want to sit for weeks together, getting to know things. And then, but they already want to be one who's fitting into the project soon. So microlearnings are small bits or chunks of learning content, not long enough that can bow you down. So we have one onboarding course, which is also crisp and quite small, handy, can be consumed. Probably you take a day or something, view it, and get a round circle of information from that about Shopware. And also microlearning is somewhere where you want to solve a question quickly. Like you have confronted an error, and could be someone also has confronted some error like this. So you mostly go into the Stack Overflow or check in the Shopware community Slack channel. Instead, if you have a small video pill like this, which you can just scroll through or search for it, and then also see it visually that, this is the issue and it's been solved this way. Okay, type in this commands and then it's done. So then it's more quicker and people enjoy doing it or consuming that kind of info as well. And also small blog posts, which is informative for now and then. So all these kinds of micro learnings are mostly appreciated and easily consumed by users. That's about it.
Yeah, cool. I love it. It makes sense to have bite-sized chunks of information, right? Just something that you need to quickly consume, especially when it comes to very specific stuff like payments or shipping, right? That's something that you probably don't want to become an expert in unless you work for PayPal or something like that. So it absolutely makes sense that it's more like a quick information dump, do what you need to do, and then carry on with your next task.
Right, yeah.
Cool, very cool. And maybe a last one on the types of techniques that you're using, and then we'll stop nerding out on that. What is progressive learning?
Yeah, so progressive learning is a gradual way of learning from the basic till you reach your goal. So progressive learning is something that we break the logical concepts into more a modular format. I mean, to whatever extent we could break it into the smallest ones and then see where this best fits, either is it a basic level understanding or is it mediocre or is it advanced? And then accordingly, we have designed courses, as I told you then as well, that we have different levels of courses, and we gradually would want to understand the level of the user as well. So we have some checkpoint quizzes in between after they consume these basic level information, and to check themselves that, okay, am I actually understanding things here and fitting myself? Okay, I'm comfortable at this level of information. I've consumed it well because I'm able to answer the quizzes well. And then they progress slowly to the next level of courses. And at the end of every learning path, we have quiz as well, certification. So this is again to evaluate your learning outcome. To what extent have you achieved what you have learned? And if you say that, okay, I've cleared the certification, it means that, okay, the basic level is done. You have have cleared the first level, and now you are capable to take up the next level, which could be a mediocre course. So that's the gradual way of progressing your learning curve, and that's why it is called progressive learning. And in between, what helps a progressive learning to be consumed successfully and also easily is again the interactive stuffs that it could be the hands-on environments which we provide where you can test and trial things that is put in the text or in the video format to see that, okay, am I able to do everything that's been given here? So it means that I'm putting things into practicality, and that boosts your confidence because you're now able to bring something into reality from your eyes, right? So things like that, and also the multimedia content. In between, we also have certain quizzes inside the units as well, which is they're optional, in fact, which is to just, again, evaluate, are you just going through the entire course and able to answer that in between and see the results, or you just skimming through? If you're skimming through, then it is very much optional. But if you're going through the course seriously, then it is advisable to answer those quizzes because they are kind of interrelated to the next set of the content which is present within the unit. At every juncture, the progressive learning lets you test yourself. So this is also to keep you alert at few points to check yourself to what extent you are able to consume things and are you successful in understanding the concepts. And yes, you get in right answers or the green marks when you attend the quizzes. It will automatically improve your dopamine levels and increase your learning interestingly. Yeah, so progressive learning is about mostly gradually moving your learning curve from basic to advanced and get the learning outcomes out from it in a successful way.
Yeah, I can totally see how this maybe also relates to the learning paths, right? Being able to go on a guided course, let's say, through the world of Shopware instead of just getting it dumped on your head. I love that. We're coming up on the half-hour mark, so I'll maybe do some rapid-fire questions to round it off. First of all, I think a question that everyone is going to ask, is the learning content going to be updated in the community hub often? Because I think we've seen with other content in the past that at times it was a little bit outdated.
Yeah, so I can take that. Easy answer, yes. So that was, like, as I mentioned before, that was one of the key issues that we were also facing when designing this new way of the academy. So we do have a team really only responsible for updating that content continuously. That's really, really important. So right now we are in a phase of creating a lot of new content, but our expectations here to ourselves is really to keep it up to date all the time, to also implement clear connections like internally in our organization as well, so that when Shopware moves forward, the learning content moves forward as well. That's really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe the next one, another one that is, I think, a hot topic. What about certifications? Are they being updated? Will they align to the learning paths that we have?
Yes. Also, yes, absolutely. So we are working on the certifications as well. Maybe we can talk about that topic also with our head of academy, Leah Weig. But yes, we are aiming to move those certifications up and have a clear connection between learning pathways and certifications, so that certain pathways can lead to an optional certification. And of course, certifications are something of value where a learning path prepares the learner perfectly for that certification. But still, and that's something that's really important here, we want to be sure that those learning pathways lead not only to a certification in its own, it leads to success in the business. Certification is just an advocate for that. It's not like you're learning only for the certification. You're learning to have success, and the certification just gives you that big mark of, yes, it's certified and it's good.
Exactly. Something to hang on the wall.
Yeah.
And maybe a last question to wrap this up, Sue. Any behind the scenes moments you can share? Anything challenging you face or funny that you faced along the way of writing the content?
Yeah, many in fact. Now I'm Googling my head what I could be telling about. Yeah, there were many instances because we came up with this idea from scratch on how to build the content, how to strategize things, structure it, and also how to deliver video, how to build content from scratch, and what tools to use for creating the video and things like that. And I think I will probably tell this one, which is kind of funny, and mostly it would happen with many video creators. Yeah, because I've also heard it from my colleague as well. So this was when I was creating a video for setting up Shopware in the Mac OS, and I tried it before I record the video because I don't want to do a lot of editing in between or mess up stuffs and things like that. So I actually set up a Shopware and note down all the points and things like that. And actually, when the time came up and I started recording, and I'm like, boom, there's an error here. And at that point, I'm like, okay, what do I do? But I didn't panic. I tried to convert the situation a little positively, speaking about the error. Okay, probably you guys also could confront an error like this, and I'm trying to figure out how this can be done. But, that took 3.5 hours or something. And I'm like, at any point, this is just going to be done. And I'm recording and this like 3.5 hours. And the aim of these learning content, as I told you, it's not going to run more than 25 minutes. So we want to keep it as short as possible. And I'm like, oh my God. So this is never ending. And I've been speaking for 3.5 hours now, how to solve this. And finally, I had to cut that 3.5 hours of whatever things that I led to in solving it. And I had to concise it for I think it's around 8 minutes. The video is around 8 minutes. And it is not easy at all to do the post-processing work. But I have a lot of stories like this with video and audio recording. And but it's been, now they have become my friends, the video tools and the pod mic. Oh my gosh, I love them.
That's amazing. I cannot wait for the director's cut of your tutorial video, which is going to run for like 6 hours. We're going to do another cinema tour in Germany. This time not about Shopware, but about your tutorials. Maybe we could get narration under it. David Attenborough. It's going to be amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge on this episode. I really appreciate how much scientific thinking has gone into the documentation, the learning paths that we have. And it was amazing to hear that from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sander.
Thank you.